It begins with a shock that few South Africans saw coming. In KwaZulu-Natal, a province where traditional authority still shapes daily life, senior amakhosi are openly pushing back against the ANC's latest land reform moves, warning that a political decision taken in offices far from rural homesteads could ignite a crisis rooted in centuries of custom and power. This is not just about land on paper. It is about identity, authority, and survival. And if you want to understand why this moment could reshape KZN's political future, make sure you subscribe now and watch this story to the very end, because what unfolds next goes far beyond a policy debate. What follows is a collision of two systems that have always existed in uneasy balance: the democratic state and traditional leadership. The ANC's renewed push to clarify land ownership and administration has reopened old wounds, especially in areas where land is held under customary law and administered by amakhosi on behalf of communities. On the surface, the proposal is framed as reform and efficiency, but beneath it lies a deeper fear that traditional leaders are being slowly stripped of their authority, piece by piece, without their consent or understanding. Imagine a rural household that has lived on the same land for generations, guided by the local enraged who allocates land, resolves disputes, and acts as a bridge between the people and the state. Now imagine that system suddenly being overridden by distant bureaucratic structures. For many amakhosi, this is not reform, it is erasure. Power, once removed, is rarely returned. That single truth hangs heavily over the current outrage. At the heart of the anger is the perception that the ANC is sidelining traditional leaders in decisions that directly affect their communities. Amakhosi argue that land reform discussions are happening without genuine consultation, reducing them to ceremonial figures rather than custodians of land and culture. The frustration is not new, but this time it is louder, sharper, and more coordinated than before. KwaZulu-Natal's history makes this tension even more explosive. The province has long been a battleground of political identity, where allegiance to traditional authority often rivals loyalty to political parties. Any attempt to alter land governance here is never just administrative, it is deeply political. When land is touched, nerves are exposed, quickly. Some amakhosi see this as part of a broader pattern, where traditional institutions are praised during elections, but ignored during policy-making. They point to past promises of partnership that faded once votes were counted. The result is a growing sense of betrayal, and betrayal hardens resistance faster than ideology ever could. The ANC, on the other hand, insists that land reform is necessary to address inequality, improve accountability, and align land administration with constitutional principles. From their perspective, no institution, traditional or otherwise, should operate beyond democratic oversight. Two visions of justice now stand face to face. Only one can dominate. Legal ambiguity adds fuel to the fire. Much of KZN's land falls under communal tenure, governed by a mix of customary law and state legislation. This gray zone has allowed informal systems to function for decades, but it has also created loopholes, disputes, and allegations of abuse. Reform, supporters argue, is overdue. But reform imposed without trust becomes resistance. As the debate intensifies, ordinary rural residents are caught in the middle. Many respect their amakhosi deeply, yet also desire secure land rights and protection from exploitation. They fear that political battles fought above them could destabilize their already fragile livelihoods. When leaders fight, communities feel the shockwaves first. This moment also exposes a deeper national question. Can South Africa truly integrate traditional governance into a modern constitutional state without reducing it to symbolism? The anger in KZN suggests that the answer remains unresolved, and the consequences of getting it wrong could be severe. The response from amakhosi has not been uniform, but the shared message is unmistakable. Land cannot be discussed without those who live on it and lead its communities. Silence is no longer an option. Resistance has found its voice. By this point in the story, it becomes clear that this is not merely a provincial dispute. It is a test case. What happens in KZN could set a precedent for how land reform interacts with traditional authority across the country. That is why this conversation matters far beyond provincial borders, and why staying with this story until the end reveals its true weight. The political timing is impossible to ignore. With elections always on the horizon, land remains one of the most emotionally charged issues in South Africa. Any misstep risks alienating key voting blocs. For the ANC, navigating this tension requires precision. For amakhosi, the moment demands firmness. Some analysts warn that ignoring traditional leaders could drive them toward opposition parties or independent political action. Influence does not vanish, it relocates. And in rural KZN, that influence can still move thousands. Others argue that this confrontation could force long-overdue clarity, compelling the state and traditional leaders to finally define their roles in a way that is transparent and fair. Conflict, they say, may be the only path to resolution. Still, the risk remains that dialogue collapses into defiance. When authority feels threatened, compromise becomes difficult. History offers many examples. Few end quietly. As emotions rise, calls for urgent engagement grow louder. Community meetings, closed-door negotiations, and public statements now shape the atmosphere. Every word matters. Every delay deepens suspicion. What is unfolding is a power negotiation in real time, watched closely by politicians, activists, and ordinary citizens alike. The outcome will influence land policy, traditional leadership, and political trust for years to come. As this chapter nears its turning point, one thing is certain. Land reform in KwaZulu-Natal can no longer be treated as a technical exercise. It is a human story, a cultural story, and a political reckoning rolled into one. And as the dust begins to settle, the final question lingers in the air. Will South Africa find a way to reform land without breaking the bonds that hold rural communities together? Or will this standoff mark the beginning of a deeper divide? If this analysis has helped you see the bigger picture, subscribe now, stay with the channel, and watch to the very end. Because stories like this shape the country we wake up to tomorrow.